So I posted a video about the 5 bass players that have had the most influence on me personally as a bass player. So not necessarily the most impressive or the most famous or the best, but the 5 that have had the most influence on me as a musician. But I asked you to share your 5, and you did. I got a lot of comments, got a lot of great comments, a lot of great bass players listed off, and I thought it'd be cool to tally them up. So I tallied up all the comments. I found the 5 most consistently mentioned bass players as your personal most influential bass players. So, in no particular order, according to YouTube, or at least the comment section on my channel, these are the 5 most influential bass players. Yeah, that would just be fun to share. Here we go. Oh, and before I start the list, I do have to mention I have a bass course called 4-String Fundamentals. It's about a 2.5-hour course. By the end of this course, you should be able to start writing your own bass lines and improvise and play in a band. So if that's something that you're interested in, the link to that is in the description. Now that that's out of the way, here are the 5 most influential bass players according to YouTube. Okay, like I said, this list is not in any certain order, but one of the names that kept coming up so much was John Entwistle of The Who. If you aren't familiar with John Entwistle, he has this really unique style, and I think he was really innovative on the bass. He was one of the first bass players, I think, that sort of stepped out and was not afraid to just be bold and to play some really impressive stuff on the bass. And it works really well in The Who because the drummer, Keith Moon, has this sort of bombastic explosion sort of sound. And then you have Pete Townsend, who is playing like more rhythmic chordal rock guitar. And John Entwistle found this way to just kind of weave through it in this really cool way that's very rhythmic and ties things together and gives melodic interest and grooves. So yeah, I think John Entwistle is undeniably one of the most influential bass players. I'm glad he's on this list. I'm glad that you all chose him. If you haven't heard him before, you probably have, and you maybe just didn't know his name. But I would say go listen to My Generation and listen to the bass. It's just cool. It's just so cool. So, number 1 on the list, John Entwistle. Okay, next up is... I'm going to straighten that. There. Okay, next up is Geddy Lee of Rush. And I have to come clean and say I've never been a huge Rush fan, but I have a lot of respect for Rush. In fact, I went to music school about 10 years ago. We had rock performance class, levels 1 through 4. And one of the final exams for Rock 4 was playing YYZ by Rush. The process of me learning that song and having to perform it definitely made me respect Geddy Lee and Rush. And I think he deserves this spot on the list. I think you all chose well. It's not just his bass playing, too. It's like he's this amazing singer and multi-instrumentalist, and oftentimes he's like doing them at the same time. He's just an amazing musician with a powerful, distinctive bass style, and I think he has had a huge influence on a lot of people, and I definitely have learned from learning his music. So number 2, Geddy Lee of Rush. Okay, so the next influential bass player on your list is Chris Squire of the progressive English rock band Yes. And I have to be honest, of everybody on this list, this is the person I probably was the least familiar with. I know a few Yes songs. I've heard them before, but I just didn't grow up listening to it. I've never really actively listened to Yes. And because of your recommendation, I have been listening to Yes today and learning a little bit more about them, and I think he chose really well. He has this really aggressive, melodic, and precise sort of style. And one song in particular that I thought was a cool example of his playing was Roundabout. But maybe some of you deep Chris Squire fans could share what are some other songs that we should check out if we want to learn more about Chris Squire and his playing. again, it's just somebody I didn't know super well, but I'm glad that you turned me on to him, and I'm going to keep learning. And I think it's cool that we don't all know everything. I'm learning a lot just by starting this YouTube channel, and I've learned a lot from you all along the way, so thanks for that. Okay, next up on the list is somebody that doesn't really need any introduction from me, Jaco Pastorius. But maybe you don't know who Jaco is, and if not, that's okay. Maybe you didn't grow up around jazz, or maybe you're new to some of this stuff, and that's okay. But I'll tell you a little bit. Jaco Pastorius is a brilliant bass player. He's probably the most famous fretless bass player. He played a jazz bass with no frets. He ripped the frets out. He has this really distinctive sound that's influenced a lot of people. A lot of people have tried to emulate Jaco's sound and style, and I don't think anybody has ever really done it justice. He has this really distinctive, punchy, barky, mid-range sort of bass sound that cuts really well, and he has this monstrous rhythm understanding, and also his really deeply studied jazz music. So he kind of showed up on the scene and blew everyone away, and then sadly left us too soon. If you haven't heard Jaco, take some time to listen to Donna Lee. It's his take on a saxophone solo with an electric bass, like a bebop thing. No one had ever really done that before. And you'll get an idea of what made him so unique. And I would say listen to Teen Town, which is a super cool song with Weather Report. And just for fun, I'm going to throw in The Chicken. That's a really fun song that gets called a lot of jam sessions. That would be good to know how to play. I mean, there's nothing that I can really say about Jaco that you don't probably already know, but he definitely deserves to be on this list, and I've learned a lot from him. And I know a lot of bass players have learned a lot from him, so good choice with Jaco Pastorius. Last one on the list, in no particular order, and I should say stick around because I'm going to have 3 honorable mentions that I think I need to mention. Number 5 is John Paul Jones of Led Zeppelin. Actually, I almost put John Paul Jones on my list. It's really hard trying to have just 5. It's an arbitrary number. It doesn't really matter. But John Paul Jones is definitely in my top 10. Yeah, you chose well. I mean, he's undeniably cool. He's an early pioneer of rock and heavier rock music. He's such a cool understanding of blues and soulful music and integrates it really well into this rock style of his. If you haven't heard John Paul Jones, it's definitely time to. I would mention 2 songs in particular. Check out Ramble On. Check out Good Times, Bad Times. Really anything by Led Zeppelin is going to be cool. And like I said, he's had a huge influence on me, and he's had a huge influence on generations of bass players. Okay, before you go, I do have 3 honorable mentions I want to mention. I think they deserve a spot on the list. And like I said earlier, check out the bass course. The link's in the description. So the 3 honorable mentions: Carol Kay, undeniably cool session bass player from California, active in, I mean, she's been doing this for a long time, and has been on thousands and thousands of recordings. Recorded a lot of the Beach Boys bass lines. And if you have never heard her, knowing you were hearing her, go listen to Good Vibrations. It's just undeniably cool. I love her pick sound. I love her pocket, her rhythmic playing is just, it's perfect. I want to sound more like Carol Kay. I really admire her. She also almost made my list. Another honorable mention is Jack Bruce of Cream. So he played a ton with Eric Clapton. Very influential modern blues player. And finally, Sting. Sting is one of the coolest musicians of all time. I love his songwriting. I love listening to his voice and his music. But keep in mind that he's playing these really amazing bass lines while he's doing all that. I have a ton of respect for Sting, and I love his tone. I love the way he sounds with the Police, and I love his solo projects as well. So, okay, so those are the honorable mentions. I mean, there's so many more too, and we could make videos about each and every one of these people. This is not any sort of definitive list. These are just the people that you all chose, because these are the people that you said were the most influential bass players for your own personal playing style. Again, this is not a definitive list. This is just echoing what you all said in the comments on the last video. I love doing this. I love making these videos. I love this community. I love learning. I love that we're learning from each other. So thanks for commenting. Thanks for watching. And there's a bunch more videos on the way. So if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe. We talk a lot about bass and creativity and writing and sounds, and I'm just having a great time. So I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're hanging out. And I'll see you on the next video.